Go. There we go. Good morning, Mr. Husam Gawish. How are you?
Morning, Simon. Very well, and you?
A very warm welcome to episode 2 of This is Qatar. And funnily enough, we had a conversation probably about the turn of the year, maybe January, late January.
Correct.
Our office. And I said,
seems like a million years ago, Simon, when we met in offices.
It does. But I asked you if you would kindly, because I gave you the synopsis that I was looking to start this.
Yeah.
And you said, yes, I'm all for it. Let's get it going. And here we are. So first of all, thank you so much.
You're welcome, and thank you for inviting me. I'm a little bit disappointing. I'm number 2.
You've always been a pilot. There you go. You're the first client.
Sure. I'm just kidding.
So as we talked about kind of offline, this is an opportunity for, and as I've guided on my social media, it's an opportunity to kind of give back to clients and contacts over the 12 years that I've been in Doha, and we were very fortuitous to work together. We had a fantastic project together, but we obviously met. Well, do you remember where we first met? The fortuitous meeting.
We met by the bouncy castle at Doha English Speaking School, I recall. Is that correct, or did we meet before that?
That was the first proper engagement, yes. But we briefly met handshake to handshake in Doha Tower when you were looking at the space. But yes, that was
correct. True. Let's come back to that later. But true, that's right.
Yes, it was by the bouncy castle with our children at the infamous Des Winter Fair. I think it would be 3 years ago now.
It must be 3 years ago.
Yeah, 3 years past December. Yeah, but it feels the Middle East. You've been in Qatar as long as I have. Middle East. Since 2008.
I've been in the Middle East in 2008. In Qatar since the end of 2014.
Okay.
So I'm coming up to 6 years. Time flies. Exactly.
Time flies. We will touch on our business, but let's focus on the individual first. Let's poke around the individual. COVID-19, it's obviously affected businesses. It's obviously affected individuals. We're working from environments remotely. We're using modern day technology. How has the lockdown itself affected you and your family, with the children being home and you working from home?
Well, I think on a personal, none of us were, I don't think just us, me, you, anyone could have ever been prepared for what we are actually living through at the moment, and the speed upon which this has happened. So I think, like many others in Qatar and elsewhere in the world, we had to adjust very quickly. I'm a father of 3 children, ages 14, 12 and 8. They go to school here in Qatar. I think we mentioned a few seconds ago Doha English Speaking School. That's where my daughter goes, and my 2 sons go to Doha College, both British curriculum schools. And it took us all by surprise. But I have to say, and I'm not plugging the schools in any way, but both schools have reacted very, very quickly and very, very professionally in setting up the distant learning, online learning for all 3 of them. Like many other schools in Qatar, and I'm sure many schools have done the same and have done a good job. But just adjusting to studying at home, waking up at the same time they usually wake up to go to school, but not go to school, go to their desks and link to the classroom and link to their teachers and start the learning process. And I have to say it's disruptive, but it's been done in the best possible way. So they actually log in, they attend their classes at the same scheduled time, they engage with their teachers and their classmates. They have set tasks which they submit at the end of each lesson, and they go on to the next lesson. And it's amazing. Even when they have a PE class, they put on their trainers and start exercising somewhere in the house where they can find some space, or outside in the garden. It's remarkable. I mean, my generation, if you told me this could have happened when I went to school, I'd say this was the stuff of fantasies, you know. And it's amazing what can be done now with technology. So from a personal point of view, the schooling has been great. It's as much as it can be. My wife also works at the school where my daughter goes, and she's working from home, and as am I. So we're all learning to live with each other 24/7. Sorry?
Have enough room to get everything done.
Enough room and not get in each other's ways. And it's strange. I mean, I work long hours, as I'm sure many people do, and I leave home early in the morning and come back an hour or two before bedtime. So trying to have dinner, see what happened at school, and put everyone to bed. And suddenly we have all this time together. We're all reacquainting ourselves with each other, which is great. I think there are positives in this as well, but it's a new way of working. So yeah, on a personal level, it's been okay. Sorry?
A bit of a reset.
It's a bit of a reset indeed. But also finding, I mean, I've managed to negotiate a corner in the living room where I've set up my office and my screen and my printer, but I do get kicked out at meal times and dinner times. The kids are they're in their rooms, and my wife kind of hovers around, finding different places to work and makes sure no one is treading on her toes. This is her place in normal circumstances, and everyone's now here. Although she does work full time at the school, as I said, but the house is her domain, if you see what I mean. But we're all learning to work with one another and live harmoniously.
As you know, my children also attend DES, and my wife is a qualified teacher, so she's having to dust off the when they're born. She's been at home with them, and since this has happened, she's having to dust off the cobwebs of her teaching skills.
Sure.
And the children, if they're in the class, they have 20 to 22 colleagues and classmates, and they don't get 100% of the attention. But for a solid 3 to 4 hours in the morning, my wife and the children are focused, and by the time I get home, they just look drained because all has been on them, and they haven't been able to have playtime or breakout time. Bless them, but they're doing very well, and I think my wife is in her element. To be honest, I'm sure she would rather some time on her own with the children being in school.
Yeah. I think it also depends on the ages. I think my elder two boys are more independent. They do their work and they just get on with it. The younger one, who is in year 3, needs a little bit of help and time. So, I mean, I don't know how old, I can't remember how old yours are, but if they're on the younger side of primary school, they just need that bit more attention. I know lots of friends who have kids in years 1 and preschool and year 2, they just need that more. And lots of parents are obviously not happy and complaining, but we are, and I hate to use the word because it's been overused, but unprecedented, extraordinary, but it's all true. We've never gone through this. I don't think anyone alive today has gone through this before. So we need to be a bit more flexible, and we need to be a bit more accepting, and we have to work with the schools, we have to work with our clients, we have to work with the police and the authorities, the supermarkets. This is not about us. It's not about individuals and what they think and restrictions and all of that. I think there's a bigger issue here, and without the flexibility, without the understanding, we're not going to succeed.
No, I agree. Okay, let's move on to Husam. We've spoken a bit about Husam, the personal. Let's talk a bit more about the professional. So 6 years in Qatar. What brought you to Qatar specifically?
So I am a civil engineer by training. I studied civil engineering in the UK, and I did a master's degree, and I joined a firm in the UK as a technical civil engineer, a bridge designer. That was the start of my career. Which then led me to, I worked in London for a number of years and went with that company to Bangladesh and lived in Dhaka for the best part of 5 years, where I was supervising the construction of bridges funded by the British government, the Department for International Development. which is the equivalent of USAID or the like. You know, it's funding by the UK across the world, basically. And this project was funding the construction of narrow bridges in wider highways in the western part of Bangladesh. I won't go into a lot of detail, but it was quite a fulfilling project from a professional point of view. When I was in the UK, I was part of a bigger team always, a designer, a member of a bigger design team, and your work is often lost because you're just a small you're a small part of a bigger picture. But this particular project, with the funding that the UK has very generously given to Bangladesh to build these bridges, it funded the reconstruction, let's say, of 36 bridges of various lengths. And the project itself was in the rural part of Western Bangladesh, communities where there was a lot of poverty and very little connectivity to the rest of the country. The roads themselves were widened through other projects, but every so often you come to a bottleneck where there's a crossing across the very many across the many rivers and streams in Bangladesh, which is a characteristic of Bangladesh. And you have highways that can take 2 or 4 lanes, all converging to a single lane steel bridge, which was built in the 50s and the 60s, and it caused not only traffic jams, but it was a big health and safety issue. And bridges there are used by cars, by trucks, by buses, by bull-driven carts, by rickshaws, by pedestrians, and it's truly a life vein, an artery from one part of the country to the other. And that project meant was dealt with the replacement of these bridges by wider structures properly built, and it was why I was there. And in a nutshell, we worked with the Bangladeshi Ministry of Transport, and the idea was that these bridges were going to be designed by Bangladeshi consultants and widened and built by Bangladeshi contractors, and we had overall oversight of the delivery of that project. So 5 years later, we replaced the 36 bridges with properly built structures, concrete bridges, pre-stressed, post-tension bridges with the right width, and they had pedestrian lane, rickshaw lanes, and pavements for people to walk across. And it was really excellent. And the main thing was the knowledge transfer, the capacity building from what we provided as British consultants to the community there. So that's what I was doing in Bangladesh. And after that, I came to Dubai in the UAE with the same company to work on a major infrastructure project there, the Dubai Metro project. And at that point in my career is when I made the progression from being a technical engineer to looking more into the contract and commercial and claims side of our industry in late 2007, early 2008. In between, I spent a few months in Saudi, but that was really the point where I became more interested in contract and commercial and claims consultancy, and spent in Dubai about 8 years doing exactly that. And really, that's where I found my biggest interest in our industry. So at the end of that period, a good friend of mine and an ex-colleague who had joined the company that I work for now, HKA, previously part of Hill International, if you know that firm. But Hill International had a project management group and a contracts and claims and dispute management group. So he joined that part of the business and really brought me on to join. but the idea was to join as country manager for Hill's contracts and claims group in Qatar. And the idea immediately, you know, when sometimes you immediately know it's the right opportunity and the right job, or the right you know, opportunity to follow. And I immediately knew, yes, this was the one. A lot of people in the UAE at the time said, "What? You're leaving Dubai to go to live in Qatar? You must be crazy." And, you know, who would want to do that? And I'm sure lots of people who live in Qatar hearing this now can relate to that. But to me, it was never about, you know, living in Dubai. Or, I mean, I lived, as I said, 5 years in Bangladesh, in Dhaka. I wasn't, if I was after the glitz and glamour of life, I wouldn't have done that. But I can honestly tell you, those 5 years in Bangladesh have been amongst the most fulfilling to me personally, as in my career. The change it brought to these communities, and the joy and happiness, and instant instant shift in economic fortunes of these communities in these parts of Bangladesh is why I studied civil engineering in the first place, to make a real change to communities and to people. So, you know, it didn't bother me that I was leaving Dubai, coming to Qatar. Admittedly, I visited Qatar on many occasions prior, and you know, with a young family like mine, and the right career opportunity, it didn't really, that wasn't even on my radar at all. So I came to Qatar and I joined Hill at the time, HKA obviously now, as country manager for the contracts and claims group. And I tell you, ever since then, I look back and say, wow, what you know, it was absolutely the right decision to make. So I did act in that capacity as country manager for HKA's for HKA for those years, from November 2014 until the early part of 2017, when there was a change in the company, and the contracts and claims part of and the dispute management part of Hill was segregated from Hill and became an independent entity within Hill, and it was then bought by an independent firm in the UK, and hence the name change from Hill Contracts and Claims to HKA. But we've retained our identity. We've retained our offices across the world. We have offices all over the globe. 50 offices to be precise, in 19 countries. From the US, South America, Europe, Middle East, Far East. In South Africa, we have an office, and in Australia. So it's a global company. We've retained all these offices. We've retained our professionals because we're a people's business. We don't make you know, we don't make a soft drink, or we don't sell books or pens. We sell people and people's expertise, and we retained all of that. So the transition has been very smooth. It's been very successful. Our clients knew they were still retaining the expertise they were used to. So in that period, in 2017, when we became HKA and an independent from Hill, is when we met, really, Simon, because our office was shared with our previous company at the time, and we needed to find our own identity and our own space, and hence coming to you to help us fit out our new office in Doha Tower. And maybe you want to talk a bit more about that in a minute, but that was the relationship. But it was at the time when we became HKA, and just to finish the progression. So in that, also around that time, towards the end of 2017, I took up a new role with HKA. I've become more of accepted a new role as a regional business development head for the Middle East and North Africa. Also around about the time I became one of the partners at HKA, based here based in Qatar, a Middle East partner amongst other partners globally. And it also, that change in role and in designation happened around about the time we became HKA. And we brought on a very capable and very competent and also a veteran of Qatar to head up our operations in Qatar. At the time I moved into this new role, a gentleman by the name of Tom Kapapa, who joined us around that time. So a lot of changes in that period, but my role is now sort of more wider than just Qatar, focused in this region and in North Africa. And so, yeah, so that's in summary the progression of my career leading up to where I am now. We have an office in Qatar with about 25 resident professionals, but we have offices also in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, in Jeddah, in Riyadh, in Muscat.
Transition over the first 18 months period where you're rebranding as an organization. I think the positive is that you have an existing client base where you can preempt the communication to that client base, control the PR, the positive PR. But what do you think was the hardest part of that transition, ensuring that the reputation of your staff and the expertise was carried through to a name that was potentially not really well known to your client?
To be honest, Simon, we were all worried about precisely what you're saying. We were part of a globally known brand, and we did worry about what the impact would be. But I have to say, and I'm not just saying this because to make it sound better than what it was, but honestly, there was no issue. There was nothing hard. I think there were some physical difficulties because, as you know, registering a business in this part of the world is not easy. And we also in Qatar, we became part of the Qatar Financial Center. We registered with the QFC here in Qatar, and the requirements are very stringent in order to meet the requirements. But likewise, in the UAE, in Saudi and elsewhere, to register a business is very challenging, and to change. Obviously, we were all contracted with one company. The HR side of it, the migrating all the contracts from one company to the other, all the issues relating to accounting and IT and the residencies and the permits and all of that. Of course, that was challenging, and we needed a lot of help, and it took a lot of time. But these are all what do you call physical type of issues that we had to overcome. Where we have sponsors, we needed to deal with that. Where with the QFC here in Qatar, we don't have a sponsor. We're an independent company here in Qatar through the QFC. And if anyone knows anything about the QFC, they're a fantastic organization, really, to be a part of. They do a fantastic job right through. We've been very fortunate to become part of that organization. So I would say these are the difficulties, but in terms of our work and our clients and our brands, it's been seamless. We had to migrate a lot of our contracts, of course, novation of contracts from one entity to the other. But as I said before, we are a people-centric business. We have experts who are the best at what they do anywhere in the world. And our clients want to continue dealing with these fantastic individuals. In Qatar, we have a team of exceptional consultants at all levels who are all dedicated to this country, who all live here with their families. But across our business, from the western part of the United States to the furthest part of the eastern part of Australia and in between, we have second to none experts who are dedicated, who are competent, who are leaders in their in their fields. And this is why the transition has been seamless and the branding has been seamless. We've done a lot of work, of course, behind the scenes to make sure that everyone is on board, and also our marketing has been carefully staged throughout the process to give snapshots of where we are in the process. So it was never an on and off switch. It was a gradual, well marketed transition.
Yeah, you've been able to control that, and as I say, 18 months. Again, we spoke offline about how long both you and I have been in the Middle East, and time flies. 18 months in the grand scheme of things is not a long time.
Yeah.
So I've been in interior construction for nearly 20 years, and coming to Qatar over 12 years ago, I've seen a major shift both in interior construction and the contracts that are used, and the complexities that are required from my side. What changes have you seen over the past 5 or 6 years? And fundamentally, there are a number of organizations that are having to deal with very, very complex cases. What is it that makes HKA different? The expertise is obviously phenomenal, but what is it specifically you think that your clients admire about you as a company?
Well, I think first and foremost, we are the oldest globally. We are the oldest consultancy firm that does what we do anywhere in the world. So no other consultancy has been around as long as we have in terms of providing contracts, commercial claims, dispute management, and expert services, whether they're quantum experts or delay experts, and engineering expertise in our market, forensic accounting and commercial damages. So we are the foremost company that provides this. That's number one globally. In Qatar, we've been here for more than 10 years. In fact, longer than that, closer to 15 years, providing this kind of service to clients. So we've been here. We are known. Our clients know us. We're dedicated. We don't have a front of a business where we fly people in and out from various other offices. No, we are Qatari. We are dedicated to this country 100%. And our clients appreciate that. They appreciate that totally. And being here for as long as we have means we know this market very well. We know the complexities of doing construction work in this market. We know the different types of contracts, and we know the different employers, contractors, consultants who work in this who work in this market. So we're experienced. Not only do we have the expertise, but we also have the experience and the know-how to work in this market. And that is, you go to a doctor and you like that doctor and you trust that doctor and you come back to that doctor. It's like you go to a hairdresser, or I know we don't really go to hairdressers these days, and not that I need one, but people like you who must be missing their hair stylists and barbershops and so on. But sorry?
Let's not go there.
But it's a profession where you tend to go back to the person or the entity or the company that does that for you. And we're very much like that. We don't want people to have construction disputes. We don't really want people to have claims. But if you do have difficulties in executing your work, it's very good to know a company that knows how to help. And that's where we are. And more than 80% of our business, Simon, and I can prove this to you if you want proof, is repeat business. Clients who come back to us time and again to say, we want you to help us here or there, or not just in Qatar. You did a really good job for us in Qatar. We have a problem in Istanbul or in Malaysia or somewhere, and we can connect with our Malaysia office or with our Beijing office or Singapore office, or I don't know, Johannesburg, and that's the way we do it. So it's a combination of things. We've been here longer than anyone else. We have the experience in various locations. We have the global network of a large number of offices covering the planet, really, and we can easily connect with everybody. So this is really what differentiates us from others.
It's the fact that you've got that global network allows you to work with other global entities. The hardest part of business, I feel, is obtaining the clients. The easiest part is to lose them. You know, if you have those clients, you need to be able to retain them and offer that service and maintain that relationship. And having a company like yours, particularly in such a complex industry sector such as construction, in quite a complex region of the world when it comes to that sector, you hear many stories. It's good to have an organization, a global reputation organization like yourself, fighting in your corner. And I would echo what you have said about that multi-nationality, multi-region reach that allows you to maintain that presence with your clients on a global stage.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Simon. And not only are we global with, I said, 50 offices across the world in so many countries, but also our makeup as a company, as an organization, is very diverse. We employ people at all levels, leadership and junior levels, from all parts of from all backgrounds, from all. We are very conscious about making sure we do represent the world in terms of who we are, what countries we come from, what backgrounds we come from. We're very focused on making sure that we are, gender sensitive in terms of our service offering, and this is very, very important to us. And you touched on, it's very easy to lose clients, and hence, and I'm sure many companies, and I don't want to pretend we're the only ones who focus on quality. I know others do as well, but the issue of quality is our number one focus. We live and we die by the quality of the documents we issue, and when we are doing a project, we put the right people there to do it. We make sure there's a right interaction with our client. We need to understand what our client wants, but there's always a senior principal or partner who has oversight for the delivery of what we do. They get involved at the beginning to make sure people, our team understands what needs to be delivered, and we don't wait for intervention at the end. We make sure that there's a intervention right from the beginning. And we have a whole section or department within our company called Delivery Excellence. And this is really tasked with making sure that we deliver excellent work and excellent product. It's a group of very senior principals and partners who ensure that our work is to the quality and to the expectation of our clients, and hence clients come back to us again and again to make sure we deliver the right product.
Doing now, so you're from a business development and growing HKA within the region. I'm certainly finding this in probably the past 18 months about, and this is no disrespect to anyone that we have worked with in the past, but clients, I find, such as yourself, need to understand, and clients of yours, we need to be very selective of the clients that we work with, in the same way that our clients need to be as selective about who they work with to deliver the quality and excellence that we are offering.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, do you find that some of your clients don't appreciate the level of expertise and therefore the remuneration, the monetization that you are trying to portray and obviously propose to them? Not every company can undercut. There is a value of exchange of money, and sometimes you get what you pay for, particularly in an industry such as yours, where your claims could be into the hundreds of millions of dollars. This is not a cheap service that you offer. So do you
Yeah.
find that you have to be very selective of the clients that you work with, no matter how
Well,
difficult to work with you?
I'm glad you asked that, and I know this is something you grapple with yourself in your business. And just to make clear, when we awarded you the contract to fit out our office, you were not the cheapest we had, and we knew that. You weren't the most expensive, but you weren't the cheapest for sure. But immediately when we sat with you, we knew you knew what you were talking about. We knew you had the experience. You have done this not just in Qatar, but in the building we were moving into. We invested a lot of money to be in an office that is, arguably the most prestigious building in Qatar. And we weren't going to just cut corners. Our CEO has repeatedly and continues to champion our image and to make sure that we are based in the right addresses, in the right locations, in the right offices, because we are selling a very high quality service, and we need to be where appropriate, really. So, you're a case in example. We were happy to pay that extra to make sure we get the right service, and we weren't disappointed. And I'm not saying this because I'm talking to you now, Simon. We have a very fantastic office, the envy of anyone really who comes and visits our office. Lots of my colleagues in other offices are very jealous of our office, and how good it is, because we chose the right partner for this in yourself and your company. But to go back to your question, yes, it is always a problem. But to tell you the truth, Simon, and I don't apologize for saying this, we will never compromise quality to get, we will never compromise quality to get a client that's not willing to pay the right fee for our service. There are others in the market who do that, and I appreciate that. And in every industry, there are various levels of service. And the clients that give us work time and again, our clients, our key clients, they know what we deliver, and they are happy to pay for that service. We're obviously always aiming to increase our portfolio of clients. We explain what we do, and we try to win clients who are able to pay what's right for the service we're offering. But there comes a point where these clients, we just accept that these clients are not our clients. They're not our type of clients, and they can get the service elsewhere, and really good luck to them. I'm not saying others out there are not going to deliver. They may or may not deliver, but it's not really, we're not competing in that space. Let me put it that way.
Matching up, and a large part of that is setting the client expectations at the very, very beginning. And
yeah,
I'll probably be detrimental to myself here, but sometimes I haven't done that. Sometimes it's very difficult. I mean, one of my sort of initial questions regarding what we worked on together was, in an industry where you are, to an extent, you're involved in construction, but interior construction, a lot of people feel it's similar. It's absolutely not. It's completely different from a main contracting perspective of the building of Doha Tower to the actual refurbishment of a Cat A office. What was the hardest part of the project that you found, or what was the most interesting element of the process that we went through over that sort of 6-month period?
To be honest, Simon, personally, I've never been involved in a fit out before. It was a learning experience for me as well. But I think the actual physical side of it was because we agreed everything at the beginning. We had a proper design and a proper plan. I think your team did a fantastic job in progress, and it finished on time. There were no delays. I think I don't mind me saying we kept our side of the bargain in terms of payments and making sure we weren't late in that. So that side of things was perfect almost. The difficult part, and I think a lot of people hearing this now, was the approvals from authorities, the QCDD approvals, and you warned us. We know, because we are in this industry, we know about that, but still, it was very complex, very difficult to get all that done, and that really was the stumbling block. But in the end, the hardest part, just the process and knowing what to do and what to submit and the inspections and so on. But again, that QCDD element in Qatar is there for a reason. And I wasn't here when the horrific fire that happened in Villaggio. You might have been, Simon, but I wasn't. But of course, I read about it. That took away the lives of many young children and destroyed a lot of families. I wasn't here, but it is one of the most tragic episodes in recent Qatari history, I think. And after that, there were Qatar needed to do something about it, and they did, and it is tedious and it causes problems, but it's there for a very good reason. I think the process could be improved as we go along, and in the end we got there, Simon, as you know, and we're in our office. We're now
consistency. The process is so online driven now, but the paperwork that is required, irrespective of whether it's an Arabic piece or an English piece, or whether the drawings are there, we're working very, very hard, and this is part of my, let's say, personal development. Working with people like yourself, working with engineers to try and develop a system that's going to simplify the data, simplify where we can access that data, because it's very, very difficult and complex. If the data is not well managed from the source, i.e. property manager, facilities manager, or landlord, then it's very difficult for the tenants and the stakeholders to complete their process. So no matter what we do from our side, the compliance will always be there, because the consultant will ensure that. The consultant will sign it off. But if you can't get the piece of paper, then it doesn't matter about the compliance. You're working in a safe environment.
Yeah.
If the paper isn't there, it has such a knock-on effect to QFC licenses, trade licenses, labor quotas, visas, etc., etc. And I don't think a lot of people realize this, and it is a huge frustration of mine, and it has been for many, many years. I remember doing almost 12 years ago some Vodafone retail stores in the back of Beyond. I wasn't fortunate enough to be awarded the malls where all the paperwork was in place. I had Furuzia. I had Musharib, which is no longer there now that downtown Musharib is built. I had industrial area, and the paperwork was non-existent. They were built to compliance, but how the paperwork went through is beyond me. And I remember bumping into a gentleman in the tower that I was in, where he said, my office was built 3 years ago by a Dubai-based contractor, which I found very surprising. I bid for it, didn't get awarded it. I went to do a site survey, and no compliance was there whatsoever. The sprinklers were higher than the air conditioning ducts. There was no emergency lighting, various things, basic things like this. Fast forward to about a month, maybe 6 weeks later, after I'd given him a quotation to basically bring it up to standard, which wasn't a huge amount of money in the grand scheme of things. He used to obtain his paperwork through other means. And I was not shy in telling him what I thought, because people, you know me well enough now. People have a duty as business owners or business stakeholders to follow the process and obtain the paperwork the right way, but ensure, I'd rather they didn't obtain the paperwork, but make sure the compliance was there to protect their staff and their well-being. And even more in retail environments where you've got public sectors. And that's a huge challenge that we find within our organization, where we're not necessarily penalized, but we're held to account for something that we have no control. So yes, we were as frustrated as you were, because I think it took about 5 attempts to do the, and it was a manual upload with our team. but eventually we got there. But it didn't hinder the moving in of
No, not at all. Not at all. It didn't. I think your team was instrumental in helping us. But you also, you know, what I also like about our experience together, Simon, is you weren't all high and mighty about it, and you know, this is my responsibility or your responsibility. We signed up to this, you signed up to that. We put all that to one side, and we just tried. You said, look, you know, how can we jointly do this? And our own staff and our own public relations officer worked with your team to get it done. We shared our knowledge and our expertise, and we didn't really worry about whose role it was to do it, and we got it done. And I think this was very.
It didn't matter who was responsible for it.
It was very refreshing for me, and in the end, we got it done, and we maintained the relationship. And we had niggling, you know, issues, one thing here or there afterwards, and you were kind enough to send your people, and you didn't send the bill afterwards to say, well, this is extra. And no, I really thought it was.
If I did.
Sorry.
You wouldn't be doing this if I did.
No. But I think this came after that. We didn't know this would happen, but you know, this is what business is all about. I think I'm very much. I believe in relationships to a very large extent, and you know, if anyone out there is listening and they need to fit out an office, he is your man. And this, I wouldn't hesitate in saying that, because the experience has been great, and we're doing this because we had a good relationship. Even when we met at the
an opportunity for us to give back because of your kind words.
No, I appreciate it, Simon, a lot, and this is a really good idea.
We don't have. I've worked with various companies and done 3 or 4 offices over the year. I'd love to have 20 of me and be doing 20 of your offices globally, but we all know that that's not feasible. However, we'll come on to one of our final points in a moment about how it's changing the global connectivity of offices, which is pretty much what we're doing right now through modern technology. I mean, how do you think that's going to impact when, and it is going to be when, we're just not sure how long, when things go back to what we are used to with face-to-face meetings, or the opportunity to have face-to-face meetings. Do you think that's going to return to as close as normal as possible on a local basis, as in we could have done this face-to-face around a table? Do you think that will return to normal? And globally, surely the world is going to get much smaller. So your meeting on a regional basis can happen without you having to fly initially, unless necessary to obviously close a client. You're not going to have to fly to Northern Africa or to other parts of the GCC as often. How do you think that HKA's approach as a global company, and how will it change your role going forward?
Okay, well, I think as we said earlier, you know, this was set upon us without any prior plans. We like you, like many other businesses in Qatar and elsewhere, we've adjusted to this way of working. We're all I have to say that in our company, we were immediately we were immediate in setting up what we call a crisis management team that came on board, to continually inform our people about the developments in the region, about the spread of this disease in the country and in the region, and what we need to do. So the communication was great about you know, keeping safe and what you need to do, and how to work from home. Initially, we were working from the offices, then we reduced our presence in the office, eventually to working fully from home. So that was very important. But also simultaneously, the way our business has been run, from being an office-based business to a virtual or a remote business, our IT and the setup of our teams and our people in the region and globally has been very quick and very efficient, to the extent that we haven't, you know, we've on the whole, largely, we've continued to work unaffected. By connecting not only with ourselves but with our clients, but because many of our clients are also doing this. There are one or two examples where we were sort of site-based, and there was still a requirement to have every now and then a meeting or going to site and so on, which is happening, but happening very only when absolutely necessary, but also by observing all the social distancing and all the right things that we're all following. So we're doing well in terms of delivering our business. Now, when this is all over, there has to be a way, there must be a change in what we used to think was the only way to do business. Do we need to be, does everyone, do 100% of our people need to be in the office 100% of the time? The answer to that is probably no. I think we'll have to rethink that. There is a very good argument to say we don't need to be there all the time. But again, it depends on who's doing what in the company. People like me who are business development minded or focused, the face-to-face meeting, the traveling, the meeting clients, I think is still important, but maybe not to the extent that was happening before. There are other functions that can be done maybe 50% or 60% or 70% from home. So we are already looking at models and various ways of running our business globally post COVID-19, and whether or not we need to do what we've always done. So sometimes there is always everything happens for, the benefit of any situation needs to be taken into account, and the benefits of what we're doing now and how we can improve the way we become more efficient is certainly being looked at. But to answer your question briefly, are we going to go back to exactly doing what we're doing? I doubt it. I doubt it, and it wouldn't be the smart way of working.
I don't think it'll be the end of the corporate office. I think you're still going to have that face-to-face interaction. As you said, there are rules within the business that cannot survive on a remote basis. Technology will be a large factor of that. But I do think that it will change the design. I was listening to another podcast of some high-profile Middle East designers who were discussing exactly what their thoughts were on the changes to the office. And I think the collaboration spaces, the hot desking spaces, the size of the office also, I think will reduce. I don't think any longer are you going to have thousands and thousands of square meters. That's going to have a huge impact, particularly in Qatar, I think, on the amount of SMEs that are working in their own offices. I think they'll find that the collaboration spaces, these establishments that have remote working facilities that are available. You'll have the business centers will obviously get probably busier.
And I also think, Simon, people shouldn't. I need to be very clear. When we say we don't need to work all the time from the office moving forward, in no way am I suggesting that the actual workforce needs to be reduced. Absolutely not. I think our people and the people who are working for other businesses, I think the requirement is still 100% there. The question is, do they all need to be in the office at the same time? And I think the answer is no. And there are a lot of benefits. I'm not an expert at this, but I can see the benefit of telling people, let's say, 20-30% of your time you work at home. The benefit of being at home, being with the family, being with the kids, helping here or there, doing the odd task at home, helping out with schoolwork while you're doing your work. The benefit that brings to you and the impact that has on your job satisfaction, your happiness, your contentment, for having some input elsewhere, the less pressure of going to the office, more doing other things, that undoubtedly will have a positive reflection and an effect on your productivity and your ability to do work.
You're not finding that now? Are you not finding productivity my productivity has gone through the roof? And also there to continue.
I am, and that's why I'm saying people must benefit. There's a huge benefit that this brings. Being able to have input at home, as well as doing work when you don't have to be 9 to 5 or 8 to 6 or whatever in the office. There's bound to be a benefit from that.
Agreed. Husam, I think I'm going to wrap things up there. I think.
Sorry for going on for longer than planned, Simon.
And I certainly don't think you need to do that to the listeners. I think it's been a great insight into both you as an individual, time in Qatar, and HKA.
Yep.
I thank you very much for your kind words and for participating. And we'll get this show out to some listeners at some point this week.
I just want to end by saying, Simon, we're all, we all live in this country, and you said earlier at the very beginning, the negative, when people even told me, oh, you're going to Qatar, blah blah blah. Honestly, we're all very fortunate to be living in this country, and the way things are run here is fantastic. We're expats of all shapes and sizes and backgrounds, yet we live very harmoniously here. The authorities, even in dealing with this pandemic, the authorities have done a great job. The communication has been great. The transparency has been great. We're all free, really, to do what we want to do within the bounds of the law, which is very flexible. And we're very fortunate to be here, as opposed to many other places. And we are happy to support Qatar. And I'm sure this podcast, one of its objectives is that, and the name of it, I think it's called "This is Qatar," is reflective of that. And I just felt it's important to say that. And along with that,
mother, she never likes it when I say I'm going home to over 12 years. But that's exactly it. It is a way of probably giving an alternative. To the truth, because we have boots on the ground. Again, one of my frustrations is the negative media, and I'm not saying that everything is perfect, but from our respective countries, nothing is perfect in the world. If it was, we would all be living in harmony,
sure.
Which is
sure.
So I find it very disrespectful that and it's modern day media that they pick on a nation like Qatar, but never put things into context. And a large part of the reason is, as I say, to give things back to clients and individuals that have supported me in my business, as well as give something back to Qatar. And the strapline for the podcast is, which we're going to end on, is "This is our home. This is Qatar."
Indeed.
Husam Gawish. We will get this out on podcast, and we will see you all next week with a new episode. Thank you very much. Enjoy your day.
Thank you, Simon. Take care. Stay safe.
Bye-bye. You too.
Bye-bye.